And All Liars. Includes Systemic Indictment. July 9, 2020 by Anna von Reitz. When I was a little kid I would occasionally tell a Big Whopper, for all the usual reasons. Hands in the cookie jar. I did something I knew was wrong and was trying to hide it. My pets did something and I was covering for them. I really did want that extra piece of pie, or just to test the limits of what my mother would accept as being true. Like a game. All the reasons that little kids have for lying are the same reasons that adults have for lying. But, lying is a boring game, and I soon grew tired of it. I also found that the good old solid truth was usually, if not always known, and that sooner or later, it would come out. Especially with my mother around. She was a keen observer and always had her ear to the ground. When she caught me lying her eyes would harden into little bright green pointy stars, and then, go soft. She'd sit down with me and patiently explain, that there is no use lying about anything, because the truth is always known. God knows the truth and is the truth. So, just accept the truth, live with the truth, search for the truth, love the truth. She would try to explain this to my childish mind and it eventually took hold, and then, one day, I knew for myself that the complex and intricate workings of nature could not possibly exist apart from the absolute truth. And that, as they say, was that. Lies are garbage that has to be picked up and collected and taken to the dump. Lies are obstacles that have to be overcome. Lies keep us from living honest, free lives. So who needs more lies, about anything? Ever? I've known this for many years, and you may be sure that if I tell you anything untrue, it's because I stepped in one of the devil's cow pies myself, which very rarely happens. As it turns out, we all have a built-in sensor, a shinola sensor. If we pay attention and seek the truth, this handy little internal device will faithfully guide us, and we will seldom, by accident, get entangled in a lie. What happens more commonly than getting entangled, is suspending belief. This happens when, for whatever reasons, people want to believe a lie, so they suspend their shinola sensor. They know that the actor on the stage is just an actor, but they suspend belief and get lost in the drama. They know it is just a novel that they are reading, something that an author cooked up out of his or her imagination, but to them, it becomes true, at least for the time that they are reading. These can be harmless and enjoyable exercises of our imaginations, or they can be hideous abuses of our imaginative faculties, and always, we must decide for ourselves what is worthy to ingest and what is true. This issue of abuse of our imaginative faculties lies at the heart of the Garden of Eden story. Notice what happens. Satan tells Eve a couple whoppers. In the first, he insinuates that God is keeping something good from her, depriving her by not letting her eat the fruit. Then, he tells her she won't die, which is a half-truth, because she won't die right away. So she suspends her belief in the goodness and justice of God, her creator, and allows Satan to abuse her imagination. The same thing happens whenever we believe a lie to this day. No doubt this is the reason that the strongest condemnation of all is reserved for liars, those who deliberately lie, not those who lie because they know no better or because they are misled. See Revelation chapter 21 and the list of those apportioned to the lake of fire, and all the liars. I have always advised you to use your shinola sensors and to look around the corner at the motives and proofs and the actual actions of everyone around you, including me, or anyone else who comes to you and tells you something. I have also told you to look at the fruits of their words and works. Discerning the truth is hard work. Examining your own motives for believing or not believing something is even harder work. Often people want a reward, so they choose to believe a lie that promises them a reward. The ship is going to come in next week. In just a couple weeks, the investment will pay off. Sometimes, it's just more comforting to believe a lie. And for that reason, people believe more lies than for any other reason I know. It's comforting to think that your government is honest and working for your good. It's comforting to think that you are safe. It's comforting to think that you are free. It's comforting to think that you can just sit back and do nothing about injustices, so long as they aren't visiting you. It's comforting to believe in white hats and heroes coming to save you. I understand this very well. I even sympathize, to an extent, with those who are still willfully believing these lies, simply because the alternative is so nasty and difficult to deal with. But the truth as I know it, is that your beloved government has been functioning on 2 cylinders instead of 8, for the past 150 years. The truth is that your own beloved military is largely responsible for this circumstance, and has glutted itself at your expense. The truth is that at this very moment, the federal government is nothing more than 2 gigantic commercial corporations, both of which are bankrupt. The truth is that you and millions upon millions of other Americans have been told that you are free, when you are actually being enslaved. The truth is that you have been cast into a second-class or even third-class citizenship status by people who are on your payroll. The truth is that you have been deliberately kept in the dark, the better to profit from accessing your credit and using your assets as collateral. I am truly sorry to tell you all this. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. And I would be responsible before God for not telling you, because that, too, would be a lie by omission. To keep my skirts clean and not be an accomplice to these lies and crimes, I have to tell you. I have to support you and help you out of this mess. I have to care for you as I would wish someone to care for me. That is what my God requires. So, here I am, Lord. Doing my duty as best I can. It is also what the public law of this country requires of me. Yes, I and all of you have a public duty. That public duty requires us to uphold the actual law, not to obey the codes and statutes and executive orders that are rules for our employees, but to obey and uphold the actual public law. The public law is vested in our treaties and the 4 organic laws and in the federal constitutions, all 3 of them, and the 10 commandments. Did you even know that upholding these is your public duty? And that unless you get a paycheck from the government, the public law is the only law that you are obligated to obey? I bet nobody told you that either, but that, too, is the truth. This week I have been hit with a barrage of lies, all coming from the Reign of the Heavens Society, a shadowy organization that doesn't even have a proper mailing address. According to them, I stole the assets of this country. According to them, I work for the CIA. According to them, I am an agent for the Vatican. They also claim to be the chosen ones. They also claim that they bought the United States of America at a naval yard auction and that they own the copyright, too. Well, I can tell you right now that anyone who tells such outrageous lies and lurks in the shadows is not chosen by any God I serve. Let the record show that my names and my address and my telephone number and my email address have all been up front and in public since I began my work. Let it also show that I have made no bones about who or what I am or in what capacity I act. I revealed my actual given name up front, and my pen name, and my legal lawful trade name, too. I revealed my offices, fiduciary and state justice. I've stood here for years and invited the FBI, the CIA, or any other agency to stare and snoop to their heart's delight. I even placed an irrevocable will concerning my actions in the public record, so nobody needs to have any question whatsoever about what I am doing, what I obligated myself to, or how I limited any personal receipts I could get out of it, which happen to be the same receipts guaranteed to all other Americans. My lineage and my husband's lineage are right there on the public record, all the way back to when the Belchers landed in Boston in 1608, and when my ancestors came to Pennsylvania before the War of Independence and fought in it, too. Ya think we're Americans? We showed you our family coat of arms and where the great seals of the United States and the United States of America come from, and whose armorial array they belong to. We explained to you the source of your personal sovereignty, how you inherited it from William Belcher and how he inherited it from William the Conqueror and the Kings of Gaul. Go figure. Where is Keith Livingway's mission statement and irrevocable will and pedigree? How is his coat of arms connected to the Great Seals? Strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. And where are the bona fides of the Reign of the Heavens Society? Where, even, is a normal, credible mailing address? Where are their names? Who are these people claiming to own America, and in the same breath, saying that I stole it? When assets are stolen by pirates and a fiduciary goes after them and returns them to the actual owners, that is not called stealing. That is called honorable service. And the actual owners in this case are the American states and people of this country. Let the record also show that I and my team recorded hundreds of claims that are all in favor of the American states and people and their actual government of, for, and by the people. Those records provide a complete accounting of exactly what we did and how we did it, claiming back the assets, including the public trust assets, of the American people for the American people, and rolling it all up, handing it all back to the unincorporated Union, DBA, the United States, and assigning the international powers back to the unincorporated Federation of States, the United States of America. All the private and public assets of the American states and people are claimed and returned to them, and this is already done and already lodged on both the national and international records. Even the indemnity bonds for the transfer of the property assets back to the actual owners are posted and the payment bond owed by the Holy See. So if you are following along, your country and your private assets were at risk because of false claims and false legal presumptions being held against both in international jurisdiction. They claimed that your assets were all abandoned and up for grabs. We said, no, not abandoned. Here we all are. And we took action to prove it. But beyond that, we figured out the scheme that our erstwhile employees had set up to prevent the American people from reclaiming their identities and their inheritance. Instead of laying back in the weeds and trying to benefit ourselves at everyone else's expense, we raised the alarm. 320 million Americans have been kidnapped and human trafficked offshore in violation of international law and both the Hague and Geneva Conventions. But we didn't throw up our hands in despair and run into the bushes of Costa Rica. We developed the legal processes needed to bring Americans back home to their own land and soil and enabled them to operate their lawful government again. There are now thousands of Americans in all 50 states who have completed this process and who are standing as inheritors of this country and their own assets, and the door is open for all Americans to do the same. There are 50 lawful state assemblies, one in every state of the Union. And what does the Reign of the Heavens Society show on their record as fruits? A foreign registration of a foreign corporation deceptively calling itself, the United States of America, Incorporated. They are, in fact, trying to pull the same old shtick that the Scottish interloper pulled in 1868, infringing on our good name, and attempting to steal the identity of the lawful unincorporated American Federation of States doing business since 1776 as the United States of America. Newsflash, we never incorporated our Federation of States and we never intend to. Our sovereignty was too hard won to do any such thing. The Reign of the Heavens Society are not this country, they don't represent this country, they do not work for this country, they are not honorable agents either voluntary or hired, they are just more rats telling whoppers and trying to empower, unjustly enrich, and aggrandize themselves using legal chicanery. It's not going to work, because the actual work has already been done and their persons and their corporation calling itself the United States of America, Inc. lack standing and are merely engaged in piracy and infringement of patents and trademarks already long established, which is an international crime. Some state-of-state organization or foreign country may have been dishonest and stupid enough to issue this group a copyright or allowed them to incorporate under our good name, but that action is illegal, unlawful, null and void. It is demonstrable fraud and infringement against this country and its people and their interests, a blatant attempt to steal our identity, quite possibly aimed at accessing our assets and credit. We call upon the international principals responsible and those agencies of international law that are responsible for enforcement, to shut these pikers down and liquidate any charters issued to them by mistake. We already suffered the fraud of the Scottish interloper that was mistakenly issued a charter to operate under our good name as the United States of America, Incorporated, and we aren't going for a second round. Any principal or country or state of state caught doing this again is going to fry for it. The United States of America is not now and has never been any kind of incorporated entity, period, at all, ever. It is more than past time for everyone to wake up and look at the fruits of their actions and the actions of all these imposters, the governmental services corporations operating in the names of the actual governments. Indictment against this entire system of things: 1. Total unaccountability for crimes and abuses inflicted on the actual living people in countries throughout the world. 2. A world at war for the past 150 years, for no good reason. 3. Entire countries and cultures destroyed. 4. Hundreds of millions of people killed outright. 5. More billions of people with lives maimed, truncated and impoverished. 6. Venal, ugly scum and madmen elevated to positions of power. 7. Veneration of Satan not only tolerated, but encouraged. 8. Human sacrifice, cannibalism, and infanticide allowed to thrive. 9. National treasuries plundered by dishonest bankers. 10. National economies plundered by dishonest currency brokers and bankers. 11. Honorable national military services reduced to cheap and dirty mercenary forces at the beck and call of criminals. 12. Judicial corruption and unlawful conversion of the courts to serve private corporate aims. 13. Unlawful conversion of public assets into private assets. 14. Unlawful conversion of private assets into public assets. 15. Unbridled international piracy and human trafficking on a scale that hasn't been seen in thousands of years. 16. Dumbing down of the living people and also the professional communities, lawyers not being taught the actual law, doctors being licensed and forced to peddle pills and vaccines and speculative therapies for profit, science rendered a mockery by political agendas, favoritism, and payola. 17. Unaccountable defense contractors and pharmaceutical and insurance corporations, given get-out-of-jail cards by equally unaccountable and out-of-control governmental services corporations pretending to be actual governments. 18. Worldwide commodity market manipulation. 19. Political lobbyists misrepresenting themselves as members of the Congress of States in this country, and similar travesties throughout the world. 20. Protection of industrialist interests at the expense of public health and the planetary environment worldwide. If the Reign of Heaven Society wants to do anything constructive to change all of this, they haven't said a word or done anything worthwhile. All they have done is plagiarize the work of Frank O'Collins, known as Eucadia, try to ignorantly bastardize it into something to serve their own ends, and then stand in the darkness, accusing others of doing what they are attempting to do themselves. Where have we seen that before? Over and over and over? Links to Anna's articles and resources can be found in the video description box. Thank you for subscribing, liking and sharing.